Hello everyone, welcome to Korean Fluency Journey. In this video, I want to talk about my story of how I learned the Korean language. At the end of this video, I will be also sharing some tips about learning Korean. I hope that those tips will ease your learning process. Well, I also have some notes here. So I started learning Korean maybe 6 or 7 years ago, give or take a few years. I was a middle school student. I started learning it just out of sheer curiosity. My mom wanted me to try learning this language, and I started attending courses. Actually, those courses were primarily designed for those who were planning to go to Korea for work. So I learned there how to read Hangul and how to write, how to speak a little bit, but my skills were not sufficient to communicate well or to pursue some academic goals in Korea. And also, I must admit that I wasn't a big fan of K-pop or K-drama. At that time, the Korean language was not that popular because most of my peers, my friends who were at that time learning just like English or Russian, Korean was not that popular. And yeah, so I attended those courses, but then in order to prepare for my high school examination, I stopped for a while and I concentrated on my studies in high school. I started studying there, but I must say that the drama, like historical drama, Daejanggeum, or it's called in English like Jewel in the Palace or Jewel of the Palace, was my favorite drama. So yeah, that first drama maybe in Korean. It was dubbed into foreign languages, but the original language was Korean, so I didn't listen. But sometimes in some parts, I could hear some Korean words, some Korean phrases, and yeah, it was very beautiful. So, but my initial goal was not to come to Korea to study, just for fun. As a hobby, I learned it, and I didn't even plan to study and to use this language in the long term. So, but during my high school years, I was really busy with preparation, with exams, because it's high school, you have to decide what to do, with your life. So I didn't know what to do, but I was very eager to learn English, and I was mostly learning English and Russian and was preparing for my exams, especially the English proficiency exam, in order to apply for international universities abroad. So that was my main, time spending, except for the studies. Then on the third year, I I was accepted for a Korean university, Jeonnam National University. I started my studies there and my bachelor. Before going there, I was pretty familiar, pretty confident about the basic survival level of Korean. I could write or ask something in a very limited manner. So the language was not, my skills were not that good at that time. So, but the simple things, survival phrases like where is the toilet, how can I go there, how to buy this, or how much does it cost, these kind of phrases I knew at that time. And then yeah, it was the time for my studies at Jeonnam National University. Well, university years were not very easy. They were tough, especially when you study in a foreign environment, totally different from yours. For the first 2 years, I got a full scholarship for the first 2 years, and my classes were mostly in English, but still, in order to go somewhere to do something in Korea, you have to know some basic things, but I was okay with that. I couldn't take the classes at university level classes because they were really difficult. I mean, in Korean. I didn't have that level of proficiency in Korean to say something or to listen to the lecture and say something, give some presentations. So I preferred English to Korean first year, and then I started learning on my own. Like I took some classes which were offered by university. They were pretty good, but I'm that kind of person who want to do something or anything like in my own way. So they have their programs, they have their syllabus, right, to teach a language, but I wasn't that comfortable with that. Then instead I use my own method to learn words, to practice this language. So I started everything from scratch, from the alphabet to the higher level of Korean. It was very hard. I took several times of TOEIC exam, Korean proficiency test, and it also was terrible for the first time. I don't know why. Maybe because my mother tongue and the Korean are two different, differ from each other, and because of the linguistic differences. But still, I felt that I wasn't progressing, but I saw a lot of people near me who were really good, who took them. It took them just like a year or a few months to get that level of fluency. I was really discouraged and disappointed with myself. Why am I not progressing? So, but then I did a lot of work. I put a lot of effort into studying. I started learning words, as many words as possible, reading especially, and started exposing myself to this language. And when I came for the first time to Korea, I felt that, even if I was familiar with the food, with the culture, with the language to some extent, but I felt and noticed that kind of culture shock, that people behave differently here, they talk differently. So when you're in Rome, you have to do like romance, right? So it was really culture shock for me, and language barrier as well. So, but then it was okay until everything step by step got better, my skills. So, and now I want to share some tips about how I could reach this kind of fluency in Korean. Now I am comfortable with expressing, articulating, and explaining things in Korean. I read, I write, and speak, and I also listen in Korean because it's spoken everywhere here. Whenever you go, wherever you go, you see lots of signs in Korean, and you hear Korean language in the bus. And my studies also involve speaking, writing in Korean, and my job as well entails a lot of work talking in Korean. So, but there are some tips that I have and I want to share with you if you are learning Korean, or if you're having some difficult times learning and improving this language. So from now on, there will be some tips from me, simple tips. And my number one tip is setting your goals. Short-term goals and long-term goals. It's very important to have clear and concrete goals for like if you are learning a foreign language, whether it's Korean or English or any other foreign language. So you have to be very clear with your goals. So if you, for example, if you want to study Korean, just ask yourself why you want to learn this language. Is it because of work? Is it because of your studies? Is it because of like travel or any other? They must be other reasons for learning this language. So you should have your own goal, and with this goal you will make your plan. You will make your set aside time for learning, and this goal will keep you moving and stay motivated even when you fail or even when you feel disappointed. So goal setting is very important in not only in learning language, right, but in other areas as well, when we work, when we study. So this is my number one tip. So, and also one important thing, if you want to stay in Korea short term, like just language courses or just your master's degree, it's okay to have a basic knowledge of Korean or like a limited level of Korean, right? But if you want to pursue like higher degrees like master's or PhD, or if you want to stay here and work in Korea, well, they require higher level of Korean. So it depends also on the type of work, like job or type of company, also company culture. So that's why you should be very clear with your goals. So if you want to work here, even there are companies that require native level Korean. So in their job description, they write like, we want, if it's a foreigner, like we hire foreigners with native level fluency or proficiency. Like the highest level is level 6 in the Korean proficiency test, but they write like higher than that. So it means that you have to have a very good, the best command of Korean in order to apply for that kind of job. So this also makes your goals more clear, right? So if it's if your goal or like objective is to get a job here, then it takes a lot of improvement. It takes a lot of studying of the Korean language. And my second tip is language exposure. So try to expose yourself to the language as much as possible. So we have, there are some students who learn this language abroad, right? Not being in Korea. Well, even if you are abroad, even if you're not studying or working in Korea, there are a lot of ways, methods to expose yourself to this language. We have internet, we have YouTube, you have my channel, and what else? A lot of free resources on the internet so you can use. And the most important thing that I want to tell here is try to improve your speaking and your writing as much as possible, because these are two skills, key things in which you can express yourself, you can communicate yourself, you can explain something to some people. So these are very important. So whether it's Korean or English, these two skills, writing and speaking, is very important. So try to spend more time improving these two areas. Tip number 3 is consistency. So you have to be consistent with what you're doing, with learning process. So there would be a lot of times when you feel like you want to give up, you don't feel like you are making any progress or improvement, but that's totally okay. So I've been there, I know it very well. So when I was preparing for TOEIC exam, the Korean test of Korean proficiency in Korean, I failed a lot of time. Not failed, but I couldn't reach the level that I desired there were a lot of frustration. I felt at that time, I felt that only me who is not good at Korean. There were a lot of people who are doing much better, whose skills were greater. But the thing is, being consistent, this is what keeps you moving, what keeps you staying motivated. So that's why I always, whatever you do, whether it's a foreign language or any other skill that you want to master, is being consistent. Even the YouTube, like most people say that you have to be very consistent, right? So yeah, consistency is also very important. And tip number 4 is try to associate the Korean language with some positive things. Like, for example, some people like listening to K-pop. Some people prefer or like watching K-dramas, or for some people, the Korean culture is interesting. So try to associate something positive or something good, or that makes you feel good, with the Korean language, right? They should be one thing that makes you feel good, feel happy in this language. For example, because why I'm telling this, because you might feel very frustrated or disappointed while learning this language. So in that time, you can like easily associate that kind of mood, right? Feeling with the positive things. Like you can turn on your phone, like to listen to music or watch some K-pop drama, K-pop or K-drama. So you will feel much better in that time. So, but if you always feel like negative things about this language, about this country, then you can't improve. You can't master this language. So you have to just live this language. Live and trying your best. So this is the also important aspect of learning Korean or any other language. So once again, these tips are applicable to any languages or any other skill, right? So you should be also considering this aspect of learning Korean, trying to associate something positive, something good with this language. And tip number 5, last tip, is don't be afraid of making mistakes. Yeah, it's very obvious, but a lot of people, me as well, feel really like intimidated or really like scared of making mistakes. But unfortunately, this kind of things will not help you, so you will not improve. You have to, even in speaking, most people do not feel confident speaking, but you have to speak. You have to practice. Actually, no one cares about your mistakes. So like if you are not a linguist, current linguist, or a professor, or like a politician, who should like speak a very grammatically correct language, right? In other cases, Koreans do not care about your mistakes, about your pronunciation. Otherwise, they feel very proud that you are learning their language, and they might help you and correct your, like, let's say your pronunciation or some grammar or some your sentences. So don't feel like afraid, and don't let mistakes define you. Mistakes are okay. Everyone makes. So we are not insured from making mistakes. So whether it's languages or any other job or work, we make mistakes and we learn from them. So I feel bad and because I didn't use and I didn't try to make as many mistakes as possible. I was trying to sound very perfect, or if I do not sound perfect, if I'm not sure about my sentence or the word or pronunciation, I would not say anything. So, but it's not correct. So you have to speak you should practice with Koreans, and not making mistakes prevent you from you making any progress. So that's why my final tip would be making as many mistakes as possible. Actually, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your mistakes, and those like tiny things like wrong grammar or wrong pronunciation or some inappropriate use of word do not actually make a big difference. I mean, when learning, it's a learning process, so you have to make mistakes and you learn. I learned that hard way. So but now even if I reach the level in which I'm comfortable with like communicating, but still I have something that I don't know, I lack a lot of confidence, but I try now to make as many mistakes as possible and get a lot of feedback from people around me. So that's why like this kind of mind shift really helps in improving your skills and achieving your goals. So language learning actually itself is not a math. So we can kind of finish math, right, by studying those terms like in university, like level math and then this kind of things. We can kind of finish, but language learning is not, will not be over. So it's like a lifelong process to improve and learn. So that's why just take your time and just enjoy the process. Enjoy the process and live this language, love this language. And I hope that you will find these tips and very helpful. Even if you don't find it helpful, maybe you will find something similar, something relatable to your story. And yeah, if you have any questions or ideas, suggestions, you can write in the comment box down below. And yeah, I'll see you in my next videos. Take care, stay safe, bye bye.